first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to speak. There's been a great deal of work that we've been doing on accessibility in the Department for Transport. We've got two very committed ministers, Andrew Jones, who's our overall accessibility minister, and Paul Maynard, who's our rail accessibility minister. And they've been really helping to drive transport accessibility work within the department and helping us to push the agenda further. So just to highlight a few things that we've been doing on transport accessibility, I think one of the things that I wish to flag, we've been working, last year we held a mental health in transport summit, and this was a summit that was delivered in development with the Mental Health Action Group. And through that, we invited transport organisations that covered airports, rail, buses, and all the various transport modes, as well as mental health groups, to draw links and understanding about the range of conditions that impact on disabled people using transport, and raising awareness of their needs and how transport providers can actually meet the needs of disabled people and improve the services that it provides. Through that summit, it was a highly successful summit, and pledges were made by the industry, which we're working to follow up on. One of the pledges that we made at the summit was to actually develop and launch a accessibility action plan consultation. And that's something that we've been doing for the past few months, which we hope to publish and launch shortly. In addition to that, we've also been doing a lot of work on dementia and hidden disabilities, particularly because transport development can be focused on more engineering and delivering major infrastructure, and there's a real need to actually focus on the passengers and making sure that we deliver services that meet the needs of others and everybody. So looking at those with less visible disabilities, such as those with dementia. So we've contributed to a project by the Welsh Government, a dementia competition, an innovation competition, which is actually looking at new ways to support those seeking to use transport to access medical services. So that's another way in which the department's been trying to provide support to increase transport accessibility. I won't touch on buses and taxis because Robert will cover that, but another thing to actually flag is that we've also been working closely with HS2 as part of their work on future rolling stock and stations, to actually make sure that the future rail services that we deliver have things like level access. So that's another area that we've been working on. I'll stop there and let Robert cover some of the buses and taxis work.
Okay, as Angela said, I work on bus and taxi accessibility specifically, and I think there are three things that I'd particularly like to draw your attention to today. In the last presentation, we heard about quite a few things that TfL are doing in London, and I think those of us who are disabled and travel a lot in London know how good it is compared to some other areas of the country. And the two things I want to mention are things that will help, we hope, to flatten that sort of spike in accessibility, so that the benefits that are seen in London are shared across Great Britain. Some of you will be aware of the Bus Services Bill, which is currently in Parliament at the moment. It's currently in the House of Commons, and that has two aspects to it which I think are particularly relevant to today. The bill's primary purpose is in delivering powers for local authorities to introduce the franchising arrangements and partnership arrangements for running bus services, reflecting local needs more. But there is, as I say, a couple of other bits that are particularly relevant, one of which are the open data provisions, we've seen how good the availability of data is in London to enable developers to make apps that make everybody's life easier, and I think particularly to give disabled passengers confidence when travelling. And our wish is to see that extended out across Great Britain. So those provisions provide powers to require data to be provided on routes, on timetables, on fares and ticketing. There's still a certain amount of work to be done on exactly what it looks like, and there's the opportunity for people here to feed into that work. There'll be a formal consultation on it later on the particular regulations. But I think this provides a real opportunity in order to extend the benefits of open data to many more millions of people across the country. The other bit that I'd like to mention on the bill specifically is that we amended it in the autumn to introduce powers to implement what we've called an accessible information requirement. In London, as was mentioned just now, we have iBus, which clearly helps many people, not just those who are disabled, but tourists, others new to routes, to feel confident in using bus services. And our wish is that that will be the case across Great Britain. There are still many, many areas that, despite the technology having existed now for 10 or more years, are still without that technology, and where people fear travelling because of the risk of ending up somewhere that they didn't intend to get off. And still, much like, I'm sorry, lie down, Gio. Much like the what do they say about working with animals? Much like those data provisions, there is still much work to be done. One aspect of it that I'd like to particularly draw your attention to, though, is the fact that we're very conscious that we don't deliver services. You deliver services, operators deliver services, developers of technology are best placed to understand how solutions for providing accessible information should work. And so our aim in doing this is to say there are certain things that we want to be provided. We want passengers to receive audible and visible information announcing the next stop and now telling them what service they're on, and that it should be provided to them for free. But outside of that, we want you, the operators, the developers, and also disabled people and people representing disabled people to help in determining what those end solutions should look like. And we hope very much that people will go away and think about that and how information can better be delivered. One other thing that I just want to mention briefly away from the Bus Services Bill is we talked, or others have talked a little bit about innovation not just being about technology, but being about software improvements and the importance of people in the equation. Next year, from the 1st of March, it will become a mandatory requirement for bus drivers to undergo or to complete disability awareness training as part of their overall training scheme. And we have produced guidance alongside working closely with the bus industry, working closely with disabled people, guidance to help operators implement that in a way that provides a consistency which disabled people so clearly need when travelling by bus and travelling by other modes of transport, so that they know that they can get on any service and that the bus driver will have received a certain level of training, will respond to their needs in an appropriate way.
For that. Fantastic to hear again how much work the department's already doing in this space and the future activities as well. And you mentioned that the department's there to help to set the requirements, but not actually obviously to set the operating procedures, etc. So if I may, I'll just ask one question of you both, which is, what is it that you'd like people to go away with at the end of today from having been here? Have you got a particular thought around that?
I think for me, I think that we should all use this opportunity to actually, it's great to actually hear some of the experiences that people have had using the transport system and those challenges. And I think it's really important for us as the department and also industry and technology specialists to actually network, use the opportunity to speak to each other. There'll be stands out here as well. Use the opportunity to actually find out more about conditions and use that information to actually improve transport services.
I think I definitely agree with that. I think I think for me, the core message is to listen. It's to invite disabled people, people who know what it's like to travel and to live with an impairment or multiple impairments, what it's like to be disabled in their use of transport, and to really listen to where they feel the challenges lie, and also their view of what the solutions are. That the points that Keith made earlier, I think around the co-development of solutions, of the need to work together really to come up with the right answers, I think is so important, and not just for those of you who are in the market for delivering solutions labelled as being about disability, but I think really the sort of the holy grail in some ways is for others, for those producing mainstream solutions also to listen and to understand, and to use the tools that are given to you. So I mentioned the opening up of data and the requirement for information to be provided on board services, and there are other things that the department do that create these opportunities, and really to use those and to move forward together to provide a much more accessible transport system.
That's great. Thank you both for your time and your input. Thank you.